Hi everyone, I'm back with the second half of this experience that I'm going through listening to Graves by Caligula's Horse. And I have to say, it's been an interesting experience. I really have mixed feelings about the music to this song. There are things that I like very much, as well as things that seem incomplete or inadequate, kind of leaving me feeling less than satisfied. I'm going to focus first on the musical elements that I can confidently say are really great. And then we'll dive into the why and how of that a little bit. And then I'll tell you what I didn't like and a couple of my reasons for it. And of course, I'll finish by saying what I found to be the most enjoyable in this song for me personally. So here we go. What was so great about it? The melodic material is definitely the most important compositional feature of this song. If it didn't have the melody, I think this song would be an utter disaster. And it's really a pretty decent melody, even standing on its own, as it does in the first half of the introduction, where we have that really atmospheric guitar opening. It is a true, genuine melody, not just a little riff or melodic motif. In fact, it's not just a melody. We have two complete phrases within this melody, rather like a question and answer format, which is very common in melodic music writing. I tried it on the harp, and it sounds quite nice. I'll show you. And so on. So what is it that makes a good melody to be a good melody? Well, first of all, it needs to have a good horizontal sense of direction, meaning it needs to travel naturally from point A to point B, and we don't want to feel like we're struggling to progress. Of course, it needs some shape to it. We don't want a melody to be flat like a board. And a very common melodic shape is somewhat like an arch, where it starts low, it rises to a peak, and then descends to a resting point towards the end of the phrase. And if we listen to this melody in detail, we find that it kind of follows that contour. But digging a bit further into it, we find some other nice features about it. So here is the melody again on its own. It starts a bit low. It rises a bit. And you see it's descending lower. It has that sort of arch-like shape. But now, let's get into how it has even more than just the basic arch. You know how it is when speaking. If we ask a question, our voice tends to rise towards the end. Like, do you want to stop now? Or if we're making a statement or giving a command, our voice tends to move downwards at the end, like, I think we should stop now. Or, more assertively, no, I said stop. It doesn't work very well to say, no, I told you to stop. So, our ears are conditioned to relate to various melodic shapes in different ways simply by using speech and language in the everyday. And music incorporates that. Now in this melody, you'll notice that as the first phrase begins, Its shape is question-like. Even as it begins to fall back down, it remains non-assertive, a bit hesitant, like it's leaving the inquiry open, remaining undecided. Let me show you again. Here's the question. And now it's a bit hesitant. And then it doesn't really assertively come to an end. It just hovers there, like, should I ask this question? Should I continue with this train of thought? It's very open, and it asks for more. Now, when we get to the second phrase, we might expect a very assertive answer to this question, which composers sometimes do. But here's interesting. Instead, rather than responding with a problem-solved answer to the first musical question phrase, instead, it restates the question more assertively, peaking at a much more dramatic climax point. And then it sort of morphs into a sort of reflection or meditation on the topic. Let me show you. Here's the second phrase. Same question. But really coming to a point. And then we start to reflect. And then, in the music, that is all the content we have, and then when it returns, it's the first question again. Not only do these two phrases pair very well together, they also give us a whole lot of musical material with which to build, and we find this material used in various ways throughout the entire song. In some parts of the song, it is the primary feature, either by the voice or by the instruments, while in other sections, it serves more as a background glue to hold everything together. Maybe it's an interjection. Maybe it's a commentary. Maybe just the harmonic basis of it is being used in an area where we don't have the melody itself present. One thing you'll notice about this piece of music is how it is made of very obviously distinct and separate sections. Sometimes this change is so abrupt that the music slams to a halt, and the next thing you know, you're in a different sound world altogether. But each one of these seemingly unrelated sections uses this melody in one way or another, and that is what keeps the whole thing from falling apart. Now, most of these sections only happen once, and then it goes on to another seemingly unrelated style. But once or twice, a section which we heard earlier in the song reappears, and this repetition is also something that helps to keep us from feeling like we've lost our way, we're wandering in the wilderness, so to speak. If you want to learn more about music theory and composition techniques, even if you're a total beginner, you are welcome to join my membership community on Ko-fi, where I am presenting a music theory course which is designed to take absolute beginners all the way to the point where they can write and arrange their own music. I think you saw in my first listen video that when we got to the a cappella section, meaning the voices in harmony without instruments, my face brightened. Really fine a cappella music is one of my loves, and I have so many favorites that I wanted to share a link with you in case you want to check out more of this style if it appeals to you as well. But I've spent way too much time trying to decide which group, which song to share with you as a sample, so I gave up and chose 3 samples. You'll find the links in the description, and if you listen to them, I'd love to hear what you think about each of them and how you relate to them. Of course, a lot of music in this a cappella style is religious, primarily Christian, because it grew out of the whole church music tradition. And if you really don't care for overtly religious music, but you love the choral sound, probably of the three groups that I'm giving you, you'll enjoy the King's Singers because they perform a lot of non-religious music as well. In fact, you might remember that they were my one exposure to Beatles music reincarnated, so to speak. But back to Graves here. This spot in the music, this a cappella moment, is truly beautiful. And it was a pleasant surprise to me. I didn't expect it, and I enjoyed it immensely. It could have lasted even longer, I felt. And the tiny touches of drum and piano in the background, they were nice. They added just a little bit of atmosphere beyond the voices and helped with the transition. Speaking of the transition, the choral section moved very nicely into a solo voice section. It grew very naturally out of the choral sound, and I guess I felt like this was one of the best, most well-handled transition moments in the entire piece. Along with the transition that followed, carrying this gentle solo voice back into the harder instrumental sound. The change happened organically, and I think it worked very well. And then, after passing through all the many sections in this song, and the transitions that are both very abrupt, as well as the ones that happen so nicely to my ears, here comes the end. And it was very abrupt. It almost feels as if the song couldn't figure out how to end, so they just chopped it off unceremoniously. It's not, to my mind, it's not a great musical conclusion. But in terms of working with the lyrics, I could see a possible reason. Maybe they wanted to give the impression that the words hand-shaped stone and all the rest that's going with that repeated phrase at the end, maybe they're wanting to suggest that that continues ad infinitum, and it could imply that, although it wasn't entirely clear to me. Speaking of lyrics, they are both intriguing and frustrating to me. I feel as though there is supposed to be a story or message that I should understand better. But instead, every time I tried to dig in and explore, it felt as if the lyrics had been designed to intentionally frustrate my efforts. And you might ask, why do I care about lyrics so much when I'm assessing this from a musical perspective? Well, it's because I feel like the music itself doesn't quite stand on its own without the lyrics. It wants to be an epic story, but the story isn't quite available. And so it ends up being a bit unsatisfying, from my perspective. Of course, as I've mentioned before, art doesn't always have to be clear to us. And sometimes it is more powerful and more universal by remaining slightly vague, open to interpretation. So it's not necessarily a fault. But still, in this piece, in spite of the fact that there are some really nice things about it, it leaves me a bit frustrated because the music is designed in a way where I feel it needs a story to make it complete, to make it make sense. The lyrics kind of reminded me a bit of Forrest Fenn's Hidden Treasure, if you're aware of that whole thing. The treasure has now been found. I saw in the news sometime in the past year or so. But so many people spent so many years of their lives dedicated to that search, trying to decode the poem, some even dying as a result of their efforts. Nevertheless, I do think it's safe to say that the lyrics deal with relationships, fears, hopes, dreams, struggles and triumphs, primarily presented on a personal level, but possibly, even probably, somewhat applicable in a broader sense as well. And these are certainly worthy topics to explore. And this brings me to what I truly didn't like about the song. It feels like it really needs some help from the lyrics to justify the drastic shifts in the music, because the music itself doesn't give me a reason for it. What do I mean by that? Well, every time we come to one of the sudden halts in the music and it changes character, the change feels contrived, arbitrary, kind of like I'm riding in the car with a driver who is not communicating their intentions and seems to be doing things intentionally to annoy me. Why did we slam on the brakes? Why did we turn here? Why do I now have to hear this? Of course, as I said, there doesn't always have to be a reason for music to do what it does. But the way this song is designed, it feels like this song should be able to justify what it does. Otherwise, what's the point? Another way of looking at it for me would be, well, you know how some books have in the index a sampler or outline of the content for each chapter? The song makes me feel like maybe I'm reading an index that includes chapter content outlines or summaries. A sort of musical sampler. But it's only the index, not the whole book. Actually, I think it's a cool idea. What if you were to make this song the first or last track on an album? I think it is the last track on an album. But use it as a sort of introduction or summary, and have all the rest of the tracks serve as the musical chapters, developing each musical episode more fully. I think it could turn out quite a musical story and become incredibly effective. But as it stands here, I do feel like someone had all these musical styles that they wanted to try, couldn't make up their minds which one to develop, or maybe thought I didn't have the attention span to stick with one for very long. So I just got the intro to each idea and never had the satisfaction of seeing it developed. A bit like a composition exercise where the professor assigns a musical idea and says, "Okay, student, here's a tune. Now give me a sample of you working it out in styles A, B, C, D, E, F, and I'll grade you on it." As far as what I've heard so far in the rock music world, I guess I'd say this piece is most similar to Nightwish's Ghost Love score. You'll notice, though, I haven't been so hard on this song as I was on Ghost Love's score, and that is because compositionally, musically, structurally, it is much better. I can't say that I heard anything that struck me as musically profound, and I do think it lacks in some areas, but I can look at it and say, yes, there are some design elements that do very well. There are parts of it that are really beautiful, and it's not a disaster at all. And I want to mention one more time, if I could find a more active collaboration, synergy between the lyrics and the music, some of what I am perceiving as faults could actually become interpretively meaningful. The fact is, I simply haven't found it. So, what did I truly enjoy? Sound-wise, of course, you've probably already figured out. What I enjoyed most was the a cappella section, while in terms of musical design and composition technique, it's the use of the musical phrase design and the handling of the transition points in the same general area as the a cappella section. Those were the most satisfying and rewarding to me as a listener. Will it go on my playlist? No, because what I loved about it isn't anything new for my playlist. I already have loads of gorgeous choral music, as well as profoundly beautiful instrumental music that has masterful design and structure. But some of you will find it more fulfilling than I do, I am sure, and that's totally fine. Maybe one of you will even crack the lyrical code for me and open new doors to my understanding of this piece. Also, remember the poll, which is in the community tab. Go there, vote for your favorite band, drop a comment with your song of choice, because next month I will review the winner. And if you want to receive notifications when I post new content, click the little bell next to the subscribe button and click this link to watch my first listen of this song if you haven't seen it yet. I'll see you soon.